Well, hello and welcome to another live edition of the Calder's Calling podcast. This is actually episode 33. So we are the Calder Times flagship podcast and your premier podcast destination for everything surrounding the American Hockey League. My name's Deana Weinheimer. I'm joined today by Jay Foster and Corey Swartz. So as you can see, Corey is in his Bears championship era. I mean, double back-to-back winners, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about, just some final end of season thoughts, because this is our first episode since the Hershey Bears clinched the Calder Cup. So we talked about that. We're also going to be talking about a lot of free agent moves. It's been busy across the American Hockey League and National Hockey League. So stick around for that. But before we kick things off, if you aren't already subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting platform or YouTube, do it now. If you're currently watching on YouTube, hello. Please feel free to like, share, hit the little bell button so you can get every episode straight into your feed. And also, I do want to say a quick thank you to our show sponsor, Document Doctors. While they're not on the ice, they can help you and your business optimize and increase your revenue and profits to a bigger slice. Check out DocumentDoctorsLLC.com. Don't forget to mention that the Calder Times sent you to them. Also, just a little plug. We are accepting comments, thoughts, rants, celebrations, whatever. So join the conversation, leave a comment, or tweet us at the Calder Times. So, Corey, congratulations are in order for the Hershey Bears, and you've got all the gear to commemorate that. I couldn't think of the word right now.
Yeah, I had to wear the hat because the hat actually just came in the mail like an hour or two ago. So it was kind of I got it and I was like, well, I have to wear it now for this type of thing. So very much a surprise. It just kind of shipped yesterday and just kind of showed up at my doorstep after pre-ordering it a little over a week ago. So very happy with that. But yeah, lots about the Bears. I mean, it was a fantastic run, a great finish. Of course, I was still kind of questioning earlier today if it was actually real or if it was just kind of a fever dream that I had in some ways. Just kind of just watching the clip back, multiple times as I've done in the last week. Just a great finish with Matt Strome of all people. The ultimate depth guy, ultimate teammate. Win for depth players everywhere, I think, with him scoring the game-winning goal. Still just such a satisfying a call by Zach Fish, as well as, just one of those great shots where it's a great little ping off the post and in. No mistake, no mistake, it's a goal. Just a fantastic finish, and I couldn't be more thrilled about it. Still, like I said, still kind of questioning if it really happened or not sometimes. If I weren't wearing the hat to say that it was, I might not know.
I'm still recovering from that night, doing the live stream pretty much by myself, but major props to my husband, Gary, and also to one of our photographers, Brian Stone Sr., for hopping in and helping me hold down the show that night. But awesome show. Congratulations again to the Hershey Bears. I'm still sour that the Cleveland Monsters didn't get there, but a lot of teams had really exciting seasons. So I guess before we talk too much about the rest of the season and how it went, I want us to go through and name our star of the season, whether it's a team, a player, maybe a fan had just a great season and you want to call them out. So if you're watching, please share your star of the season, but I think we know what Corey's is going to be, but Jay, I want you to go first. Who is your star?
So I wanted to pick someone that had a great season on a pretty miserable team. Sorry, official apologies to Andrew Rinaldi for for saying that about the Chicago Wolves. But I wanted to highlight Rocco Grimaldi, veteran player, signed an independent contract with the Chicago Wolves. And ended up scoring 36 goals, had 73 points in 72 games for the Chicago Wolves. Just a consummate professional. All of the good things to say about a veteran player you can say about Rocco Grimaldi. He had 23 points more than second place in scoring on the team, and was their All-Star nomination as well for the All-Star Classic in San Jose. I wanted to give an honorable mention to the Tucson Roadrunners, if I can, who went from finishing, I believe, 7th in the division last season, 7th or 8th, to finishing 2nd in the division this season. Got goalied in the playoffs by Dustin Wolf, as one does, but just a really tremendous improvement from the Roadrunners this season, going from, near the bottom of their division all the way to basically the top, because there was no way they were going to beat out Coachella Valley. So that's my honorable mention. But yeah, I think Rocco Grimaldi had a fantastic season as, one of the oldest men alive, and still managing to be, if you're listening to this, Rocco Grimaldi, please don't take that personally. But yeah, no, like, being an older guy on a bad team and still putting up the season that he did, I think should be celebrated.
So let me see, how old is Rocco Grimaldi?
Rocco Grimaldi, I feel like, is like 35, maybe.
He is, okay, supposed oldest man alive, Rocco Grimaldi, at a great age of 31.
Okay, yeah, he's 31 whole years old, the oldest man alive. He, I think, is 10 months older than me, so.
So I guess I'll go next. So this is kind of a last minute awarding of a star for me. I'm going to actually award mine to Jessica Campbell,
Yes.
assistant coach for the Coachella Valley Firebirds for the past 2 years. She became, whenever she started her coaching career in 2022 with the AHL, she became the first woman to coach in the American Hockey League. And now, earlier today, she was named the first woman to serve as a coach in the National Hockey League. She is just a fantastic coach. I've heard nothing but great things about her. I mean, this woman is used to making hockey history. She is so committed to player development, and she really establishes great relationships with her players. She's been breaking glass ceilings all over the place. And obviously, it was good enough to impress the brass up in Seattle. Dan Bilesma is bringing her along. Huge loss for Coachella Valley, but she's my star of the season.
Yeah, that's a great start. There's a couple of things I wanted to kind of add in here. One of which, friend of the show, Patrick Williams, does great work reporting on all things AHL. He mentioned that, there's been a lot of comments about how she's a diversity hire, etc. And he shared that a lot of typical old school hockey guys have spoken to him, and they're all really impressed by her. So that's always really great to see. Second thing, obviously she is, a coach first and a woman second, but I do want to point out that when my partner and I went to see the Firebirds play against the Barracuda earlier this season, I was so impressed by her ability to just stride across the ice on 4-inch heels, while the male coaches were kind of inching around the edge of the rink, holding onto the dasher. She just walked straight across, out over the blue line in those heels, and didn't slip, didn't do anything. So that to me is so impressive as a person who sometimes can't walk in a straight line without falling over. Shout out to Jessica Campbell for making everyone look bad by being graceful and also an incredible coach at the same time.
So we're going to move on to Corey with his star of the season. Anyone want to do a wager on if his is Bears related, as it has been seemingly all season long?
So here's the thing. I think it would be friggin' hilarious if Corey pulled the switch on us and was like, actually, we're going to talk about the Abbotsford Canucks. I think he has the chance to do the funniest possible thing here, to not pick a bear or the Bears as a whole. So Corey.
You beat me to it. I was going to say it's going to be all of them.
We spent all season talking about the Bears, and now we're going to talk about the Canucks.
Do it. Do the funny thing. Do the funny thing, please.
Sorry, guys. I'm talking about all of the Bears players. I'm not going to get a chance to do this all the time, seemingly, potentially. Who knows? Maybe I will be able to for just forever, possibly. But I had a hard time picking just one player from the Bears to talk about. And so I'm working on a variety of pieces. Free agency and the draft has certainly distracted me from some of my postseason stuff that I have cooking for the website here. But to me, it's just everybody deserves a big shout out for the Bears. It's easy to forget from how well they played that this is a team that, and you guys are all looking at your phones while I just get to wax poetic about the Bears here. So you guys all know what I'm about.
In like 20 minutes.
But
I'm giving you 2 minutes. Go.
But just from the amount of injuries that they sustained, you look at a guy like, guys like Aaron Ness, Lucas Johansson, Vincent Iorio, none of them played in the final round for the Bears. They had to rely on some depth guys, Dmitry Osipov and Nicky Lieberman, 2 guys the Bears just re-signed to new contracts here over the last couple of days for good reason. Think about guys like Garrett Rowe, who didn't get to play very much of the finals after obviously scoring the Game 7 overtime winner in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just some key guys were just out, but it just shows how well all these guys were pulling on the same rope together in terms of earning this championship as a collective. We heard guys like in some of the Washington Capitals training camp that left a big impression on some young guys coming in like Andrew Cristall, who spent some time with the Bears. They're just on how these guys take care of their bodies, take care of themselves, and play for one another. So, if you're a Capitals fan right now out there, that you can't look at the Bears' success as anything more than a big W across the organization. So shout out to everybody that that pitched in to make this win happen. It was probably one of the most team effort wins I think I've ever seen personally.
Yeah, it has been fun watching my Capital. I have a handful of friends who are Capitals fans because, no one's perfect. But I have been enjoying them, watching the Bears and enjoying the Bears because, that's what the AHL is for. You should be excited about the future. And that's why I'm always pushing my listeners on Locked On Blue Jackets to pay attention to the Monsters, because quite frankly, the Monsters were way more fun than the Blue Jackets this year. And I'm going to be pushing people to pay attention to the Barracuda this year because they're going to have a lot of really fun players on them. So if you have found your way here somehow and you are not an AHL fan already, get on that, because that's some of the most fun hockey I have ever watched has been in the AHL, and it's so much fun to pay attention to these players and watch them succeed at this level and use that as a stepping stone to the NHL. We've seen the Hershey Bears are basically going to be running it back for the most part this season, as I understand it. A couple of guys have gone elsewhere, but most of the big names, I believe, are going to be back with the Bears this season.
Yep.
Which is bad news for everyone else in the Atlantic.
It's not fair.
But great news for Corey specifically, I guess.
Yeah. So moving on, I want just to know, who would be your surprise of the season? Is it a player? Is it a team? Just what one thing surprised you the most out of the 2023-2024 American Hockey League season?
Man, put him on the spot with this.
Yeah. I'm like, man, I've forgotten every single
thing that literally happened.
Yeah. AHL, I don't know.
The first thing that pops to my mind is, some teams that, performed and surprised in the first round of the playoffs. We often kind of, bemoan the whole, do you want to play a 3-game series where your life's on the line faster, get a bye and have to sit still for a week? But for me, it was kind of a fun first round, watching the round I covered with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins was a really fun series, really competitive series between two teams who, organizationally, their teams are kind of on the rise in some ways at the AHL level. Wilkes-Barre finished really well. Lehigh Valley kind of squeaked in, but used a lot of those really good reinforcements from the NHL level to, pull off what I would consider to be a pretty startling upset, that kind of sent them into the series against the Bears with a lot of momentum. That was an underratedly hard series for the Bears to kind of have that opposite approach where they were idle for so long. The Phantoms were ready. It kind of ended up being a close 5-game series. It obviously only went 4, but it was pretty close the entire way out. So I think I'm all here for the surprises of the playoffs, and that just being the first one that comes to mind is one of those like, whoa, this is really fun, entertaining hockey to watch in terms of just the chaos. And so sometimes being a neutral observer is fun in that sense.
So with mine, my biggest surprise is going to be the Calgary Wranglers. So in the 2022-23 season, Calgary Wranglers ran away with the Pacific Division, beating out Coachella Valley for the Pacific Division title. They won 51 games, 106 points, just had a fantastic season on the back of
my main man, Dustin
yeah,
Wolf.
Dustin Wolf. They had, gosh, I'm trying to think of who even was on that team, but they had a lot of really, really great players.
Matthew Phillips was on that team.
Yeah. My brain just totally died as to who was on that team, but obviously amazing group effort. Come to the 2023-24 season, they granted the Pacific Division is tough, but they only won 35 games as opposed to 51. They went from a 736 win percentage to a 549. They went from 106 points to 79. I was expecting Calgary to have another strong appearance, but of course, goaltending problems, other things up top with the Calgary Flames. It's a story as old as time in the American Hockey League, but I was really shocked by that fall off. My not shocking thing of the season, what happened to the Chicago Wolves, 23 wins, 35 losses. That's my anti biggest shock of the season.
That's hubris at work in the very kind of the worst kind of way, the drive to want to win instead of to develop, and then losing all of your players because you're mad that your players got called up. Like, I am unsurprised that I don't like how the Hurricanes have gone about it, but I am unsurprised that they have decided to fully clean house in Chicago. I'm also going with the Central Division team as my surprise of the season, and it's not like their overall player that was surprising to me, but the Grand Rapids Griffins were dead in the water by the end of December, maybe, and then suddenly they took off, and it coincided with the Texas Stars falling off in a big way. And they rose all the way to second in the division, second only to the Milwaukee Admirals, who had that incredible 19-game win streak. The Grand Rapids Griffins ended that streak, had a pretty good streak of their own, I believe 13 or 14 games in a row without a regulation loss, from a team that, we all assumed was, like I said, basically dead in the water by the end of December. They somehow managed to emerge, and they took it to the playoffs as well. They beat the Ice Hogs. They came real close to beating the Admirals, and they for a young team, I thought they had a really good season. So shout out to the Griffins for being a surprise in a good way.
All right, Corey, how about you? Or did we already do you?
I already talked.
Oh, you already went.
I didn't talk about the Bears for one
because it wasn't about the Bears, so that threw you off.
I can understand why you might forget.
About all of the teams that the Bears played.
It 100% threw me off, and now I don't know what to do with my life. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So anyway, I think we're just going to go ahead and move on into free agency talk, because it has been, I saw something that day one of NHL free agency, which of course AHL players are most definitely impacted by by that, or are included in that. It was like one of the highest spending first days of free agency in terms of total dollars spent.
I believe it was
Ever.
the highest
Yeah.
in recorded history. Over $1 billion was spent in one day.
I can't even fathom that.
And I'm
But-
over here like, well, I had Kraft mac and cheese for dinner 3 days in a row. Like, I didn't, but that's kind of what it feels like, you know.
I'll go on with my oatmeal breakfast.
Right.
Okay, thanks. But of course, like I said, a lot of this impacting the American Hockey League. And yeah, so what I did was I put together this nice little list of some of the top free agent sign-ins, or basically looking at where some of the top players in certain categories are going to be next season. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with goalies? Do we want to start with...
I mean, you know how I feel about goalies, so...
So what is most important to everyone out there? Is it the goals against? Is it the wins? Is it the games played? Who do we want to look at first? Because they're all fantastic goalies.
Let's go ahead and look at goals against average.
All right. So when I created this list, basically what I did is I started with, okay, goals against average. Then I went wins. I went games played. So I picked like 4 or 5 out of each category. And so I picked like the top 4 goalies that had the highest goals against average. Then I looked at the top 4 goalies with wins, but didn't include the guys from the first category. But we'll look at goals against average. The cool thing about all of those goalies is they're already under contract. There's no question where these goalies are going to be. Clay Stevenson for Hershey. He's already under contract with the Caps. He signed in December 2023, 3 years. They have him for a while. Yoel Blomqvist out of Wilkes-Barre Scranton, another 3 years, signed April 5th, 2023. So Pittsburgh, Wilkes-Barre Scranton fans, you have your guy in net for a while. Same thing with Dennis Hiddleby. He's on a 3-year contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and by proxy, the Toronto Marlies. Signed that in July of 2022. So he's still got, I believe, a season left on that, if my quick math is doing well.
Should have 2 years left on that.
2 years? Okay, so my quick math is not doing well.
Last year was the first year of that deal.
There we go. And then Chris Drieger, he's the big change there. So he was with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, did a fantastic job there, had a 2.26 goals against average in the regular season, but he is headed back to Florida, possibly in Charlotte. He signed a 1-year contract on July 1st. It's going to be a bit of a battle with Spencer Knight, which he's in the middle of a 3-year extension with the Florida Panthers. So Knight and Drieger are going to be battling for that NHL backup spot with the Stanley Cup winning Panthers. And then whoever is left over will likely go down to the Charlotte Checkers.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Drieger's contract situation.
Yeah, he signed the
signed
1 year,
1 day, right?
It was 1 year on July 1st. But yeah, whenever I talk to different people, different sources, read a few articles, just swapped some messages around, all expectation was it's just going to see who comes out better in camp between Knight and Drieger. And then if needed, just it's whoever wants it. Whoever wants it.
That's a big loss for Coachella.
It is.
He was excellent for them in the playoffs.
They have a lot of those.
I think he's still got some NHL juice in him. He was very good for the Kraken in his first season there. Got injured, I believe, and never really found his way back. But yeah, that's a great depth signing for Florida, who Sergei Bobrovsky has earned every penny of that $10 million contract, but it does mean they have to go cheap on their backup goaltending. And I think this is an excellent option for them. And it's also an excellent option for Charlotte. You know, if they're like, oh, we have to choose between one of Chris Driedger and Spencer Knight, like that feels like a pretty good problem to have, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest story, just to switch to a different goaltender here, the biggest story to watch this summer is going to be Milwaukee's number one goaltender in Yaroslav Iskarov. So he is under contract through this coming season. Friendly cap hit of 925,000. So this is the third and final year of his entry level. However, there's just a lot of chatter about him possibly being moved, which totally understandable, because you look at Nashville and the moves that they made, extending UC Saros for a very long term. He's going to command a lot in return. So that's going to be, for me, the goaltender with AHL connections to watch this summer.
Yes. They really wanted to move into the top 10 of the NHL draft this current summer. No one was willing to do it, but it's I don't know. Barry Trotz might be willing to play the long game, play out the contract, give him a qualifying offer, see what happens. It's not like he's going to walk at the end of this contract for nothing. But that's also, do you want to risk burning that bridge? UC Saros is an excellent goaltender and will likely come in well above market value for that contract, which I think is very reasonable. But do you want to put all of your eggs in the Saros basket? Especially if you've got Askarov, who is still very young, very promising, and still under team control. I wouldn't be surprised to see him moved, but if I was Barry Trotz, I might keep hold of him, especially because Kevin Lankinen has gone elsewhere. I don't remember he signed elsewhere yet, but they're not bringing him back, I don't think. So there's the goaltending pipeline in the Nashville organization is kind of wonky at the minute.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with Kevin Lankinen, but we're going to look at a couple other goaltenders here. So there's two goaltenders that are currently without a contract that were some of the best goaltenders of the regular season this past season. One out of Cleveland, Jet Greaves, 30-win goaltender. Now, he was given a qualifying offer by the Columbus Blue Jackets. No contract has been negotiated, though. You would expect that he can command a pretty decent pay raise here, just because he has come from nowhere, undrafted goaltender, and it's just, solidified his spot as a potential future NHL goaltender. So that'll be interesting to watch to see what kind of term and price he gets out of that qualifying offer. And then Adam Scheel, he played 42 games with the Chicago Wolves, currently without a contract, waiting to see who might call. Do you think he has a home anywhere?
I'm trying to think who needs goaltending off the top of my head. Like, potentially Coachella Valley is an option. Potentially the Ontario Reign, depending on what the Kings do with their goaltending. There's definitely other teams that are not in the Pacific Division, but I can't think of them right now. It's an intriguing option. He was quite good on, again, a pretty miserable Chicago team. If you put him on a team that has like a real defense, he might get some pretty good results out of that. So if you're an AHL team that needs a guy, he might be worth taking a flyer on. If
nothing else, at least, a depth goaltender. I'm thinking, along the lines of
archetype.
Yep. Where you just have that guy that's in your back pocket if you need him with the inevitable injuries, call-ups, blah, blah, blah.
Cleveland might be an option, saying that.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because they've got Jet Greaves. He's locked in as the starter, I think. There's a lot of
Yep.
people talking about how he should probably go up to the NHL, but I don't agree with that. His backups, you've got Pavel Chayan, who spent most of the year in the ECHL, and I believe Nolan Lalonde is turning pro as well. I don't know that either of those guys, like, I don't know, bringing in a guy like Shield for that Brad Thiessen role, or I believe it was not last season, but the season before, I believe JF Berube held that role as well and was, a good veteran guy, again, just sometimes you just need an adult. All three of the goalies that the Blue Jackets have right now are babies, essentially. Like, I think Jet Greaves is the oldest at 23. Nolan Lalonde just turned 20. They could use a veteran guy like that. I hadn't put it together until I started thinking about Brad Thiessen. But that I could see that being a fit.
And you never know, too. I mean, the one story we saw this year with Milwaukee specifically was when, Yaroslav Askarov, struggled a little bit during the playoffs. Who was there? A wily veteran, Troy Grosnick.
Exactly.
Who, held down the fort there for a while. So having proven AHL talent is at least part of your tandem and part of your system, like you said, especially to help, raise some of these young kids, for lack of a better word, and, give them a veteran example to lead off of there, too. I think is just absolutely awesome to have. So you never underestimate
I will say,
that.
Sorry to interrupt, Corey. Adam Shield is only 25 years old, so he's not like he's not like the
I thought he was older
that we've kind of been discussing. But yeah, he's. It feels weird to be like, oh yeah, he was born in 1999. That's a veteran. I feel like if your date of birth starts with a 19, you count as a veteran in pro hockey, which makes me feel extremely old. But yeah, like he's. Like I said, he had a .907 save percentage on, again, a truly miserable Chicago Wolves team. So he's definitely there's some value there. Get him a real defense. Maybe he doesn't play 42 out of the 72 games, and you might have something there, like the Troy Grosnick of he's there if you need him. Doesn't necessarily need to play every game, but there he is.
Now I want him.
Now you're like, actually,
I do
this
want
is for
him.
me.
Yes.
At Don Waddell, please, can we have one nice thing for the Monsters?
At Don Waddell / Chris Clark.
Yes.
Please. We're going to turn our sights to the forwards here real quick. So we did have some quite a few forwards that have found new homes. One of the big ones here is Adam Gaudette out of the Springfield Thunderbirds, one of the top players for them. And again, it was a rough go for that team this year, but he was one of the real bright spots. Is now off to the Ottawa Senators, 1 year, 2-way contract, probably going to spend a bit of time down in Belleville. 71 points this past season, and also going out to the Western Conference. TJ Tynan, just one of my favorite players of all time. 66
I know, I'm so
points.
sad. I'm so sad that he went to Colorado. I miss him.
But yeah, Jay had it right there. 66 points with the Ontario Reign. Now has signed with Colorado for 1 year. So we'll just start with those two. Thoughts?
Great pickup for Colorado. Great pickup for the Senators.
Is Belleville going to be pretty good this year? Like, that's kind of like where my first thought went when I saw it. Because, like, they have – I think I'm just maybe seeing something that I want to see because they re-signed Garrett Pilon, who had I think a career year with Belleville this season. And, I feel like Belleville's kind of low-key been on the rise here a little bit. Like, I wonder, how they're going to fit in the North Division picture next season.
The big thing, though, is it was announced 2 hours ago that they traded away Igor Sokolov to the Utah Hockey Club for Jan Jenik. And Igor Sokolov has been, I think it's been like 3 or 4 seasons that he's been there. All but this year, he has been their top points getter. And this past season, he was number 3. That's going to be a huge loss.
But, like, if you replace that with Adam Gaudette, like, that's... I don't know why Sokolov went, unless they decided that they just didn't have room for him. But, yeah, Belleville might be a sneaky good sneaky good team this year.
So they've also lost Dylan Hetherington. He is off to San Diego. Jacob Larson is signing or has signed over in Switzerland. Again, they signed Adam Gaudette.
They lost someone else as well, I believe. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they went back to Finland or Sweden, I want to say. I'm going to have to look that up. I will say Jan Jenik had 36 points in 55 games for Tucson this year, so there is some value there. But yeah, Sokolov is a loss there. Who am I thinking of? Lassie Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
He has gone back to Finland, I believe.
I completely forgot about that.
But yeah, they've got some good pieces. And again, I said this a lot when they were playing the Monsters. They are such an unpleasant team to deal with, and I mean that as a compliment. And adding a guy like Gaudette, who is going to make teams pay on the score sheet, if Mads Sogard keeps developing into a solid goalie, the North Division is so miserable to play in, and it's gonna get worse, I think.
And Boko Amama is off to Wilkes-Barre. So that's another loss in terms of just grit and size and just protecting some of the younger players. But honestly, if I had to choose a team that got sneakily good over so far, I have my eye on Wilkes-Barre Scranton. They got Jimmy Huntington. I mean, they have Boko Amama. They're going
Corey,
to...
no, that didn't happen.
I'm in denial still.
Directly added, it doesn't exist.
They're going to have, Emil Bemstrom. He's that bubble guy. If they send him down, he's a year for $775K.
He'll be really good in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah. So in terms of AHL level, we need to watch Wilkes-Barre Scranton.
They're going to be chaotic is really, really how I see it. Because, they have some guys that are, they have a really good mixture of some skill guys as well as a lot of grit on that team. I feel like it's kind of, their summer so far has kind of been a throwback to maybe the early days of the Penguins organization where they weren't necessarily dominant on the, it led up to, their first Calder Cup final appearance. I want to say, I know they appeared there in 2008, but I want to say this was pretty early on, turn of the century-ish for them. But where they were really known as a brutal team to play against because they were, at the very least, they would leave you with bumps and bruises and, fights and stuff. Obviously, it was a little bit more of the wild, wild west back then.
It's the Belleville Senators style of, are they the most skilled team? No. Are they extremely unpleasant to play against and also can put the puck in the net? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a lot of these names they have in there, Corey Andonovsky. Shout out to him for he's an RFA as of us currently talking here, but it's hopefully likely that they'll re-sign him. Shout out to him. Corey spelled the proper way. They have Boko Imama. They have Mark Johnstone. Some guys that have some real edge to them, I think, in addition to some really skilled guys. That I'm just looking on the cat friendly, listing right now. That's not even going to be everybody at this point. So, there's some real, I could picture them being a really upstart team. If they're not as good as they are last season, at least in terms of a regular season finish, they will be probably my early team to watch out for as a upset contender in the Atlantic Division, personally. Sorry, I just had to say that because they've been a fascinating watch for me over the course of this summer so far.
Yeah, they got one of the best young goalies in the league, in Joel Blomqvist. Watch out for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Again, if you're a Penguins fan and you're listening to this, pay attention to the baby Penguins. They're going to be more fun than the big Penguins. I'm putting my... I don't know if that's a hot take, but Wilkes-Barre got a lot better than Pittsburgh did, I think.
Oh, yeah. And one thing with Joel Blomqvist, he is under contract with the Pens. He signed a 3-year deal in April 2023. So they've got him for a bit. They've got him under
team control for a minute, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to look at a couple more players here. So one I think was a big re-signing. Max McCormick out of Coachella Valley, 32 goals this past season. On July 1st, re-signed 2 years, two-way with the Seattle Kraken. Team captain, huge part of their success so far as a franchise. They've got him 2 more years. And then staying in the same conference going up to Ontario, Jay, one of the guys I've heard you talk about resigned a 1-year deal. Samuel Fagemo? I can never say his name. Fagemo. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, but another 1-year deal. That's one of the top goal scorers in the entire league.
43 goals in, I think he played a handful fewer games than Adam Gaudette, who had 44 goals. So just a really tremendous season from Fagemo. Got stoned in the playoffs a little bit, got the kind of snake bit. But yeah, like if you're losing a guy like Tynan, keeping Fagemo is really, really important because he did so much heavy lifting in the regular season. Now they just have to find a replacement center for him.
So one thing that is cracking me up when we saw all of these trades go down, or not the trades, but the signings go down. If any of you were around for the AHL All-Star Classic in Laval, not the season that just finished up, but the season before, and saw the gaffe when they were introducing Riker Evans, and they introduced him as or was it the other way around? Either way, they got Max McCormick and Riker Evans switched, so it's kind of the Spider-Man meme when they look at each other. Like, oh, you're me, I'm you. They are now on the same team. What a pickup.
Yeah, great. Again, Coachella Valley, losing some important pieces. The coaching staff is, I believe, almost all gone. Their star goalie, gone. I would expect Shane Wright to make a big push at making the Kraken in October. But keeping Max McCormick is a really important part of this. In a league where sometimes you have a different captain every year because they keep going somewhere, keeping your captain around is important, especially if there's a lot of turmoil going around the rest of the team. Cleveland, I'm looking at you. Trading all of your adults. Why do you do this? Deana's so upset that she can't speak. Oh no, she's just muted herself.
Because I'm just going to rant for just a minute. Cleveland, Columbus, I'm so upset because all the big pieces, almost all the big pieces, all the leadership pieces are gone out of Cleveland. Josh Dunn is out to Buffalo. Brendan Gaunt, wasn't he with Minnesota?
Brendan Gaunt has gone to Minnesota. Yeah,
Minnesota, Iowa.
To Boston.
Billy Sweezy to Boston. And just today they announced Carson Meyer to Anaheim.
Yeah. And then Nick Blankenberg has gone to the Predators. And he wasn't necessarily part of that core, but I think Malcolm Subban is the only UFA that is from that group that is currently unsigned. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deana?
Jakob Zaboral, I think, is unsigned.
Oh, yes.
Which I wouldn't mind getting him. But anyway, we're going to keep going on because I'm just going to miss that group. Every once in a while when I'm driving to work, there's a coffee shop in the town where I live, and Carson Meyer lives in the same town. Sometimes I'll see him like walking out with his coffee, and I'll wave, he'll wave back. It's like, come on, I'm going to miss that. Yeah. At least there's the summers. But another big piece that, speaking of the Abbotsford Canucks that Jay was talking about earlier, they lost.
Yes.
Yeah, they lost one of their top goal scorers in Sheldon Dries. Wow, I know who he is. But he signed a 1-year, 2-way deal with Detroit on July 1st.
Great pickup for Grand Rapids. Again, real pain in the butt to play against. Big loss.
Always.
Do you feel like Grand Rapids is going to be another contender for being a more improved team next season. I feel like Detroit's kind of, I believe if I've heard the rumors right just a little bit before we got on this, they signed Vladimir Tarasenko to kind of add to their group, but they've made a lot of pretty sneaky good depth signings, and maybe I'm just a little bit bitter that one of them is Joe Snively. But it seems like that, if some of these guys, they've gotten at the AHL level play for Grand Rapids, I feel like Grand Rapids could be another team to watch out for. I'm speaking Andrew Rinaldi's language by saying this, that, hopefully they'll, continue to improve on this run that they've gone on. They'll be able to build upon last season and, maybe be a top contending team in the Central Division again. I'm just saying that, as someone looking at it from a million miles up in the air, perhaps in the stratosphere. So I'm like, guessing a bit of that.
I feel like Detroit got a bunch of veteran players that are going to play with the big club this year, and that is potentially going to keep some of the younger talent in Grand Rapids to keep developing for a while. We're talking about guys like Jonathan Berggren, Simon Edvinsson. They're going to get Marco Kasper full-time, which should be really exciting for them. There's a lot of underrated talent in Grand Rapids, I think, and adding a guy like Sheldon Dries. They added someone else as well that I was like, oh, that's a good signing. And again, name completely gone.
Jack Campbell in net.
Yes,
to back up Sebastian Cosa.
Yeah, that's a pretty darn good tandem now that Jack Campbell is not being paid $5 million to play in the AHL. But yeah, Grand Rapids, again, is going to be a pain in the butt. And the Central Division might be better this year than it was last year. It's going to be interesting. We'll have to get Andrea Rinaldi on the show to talk about it. Our guy in the Central.
They've had so many good signings up top with Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, all of them. They had Tyler Mott as a depth piece, but they are losing Jared McIsaac. They've lost Taro Hirose, but they have they have extended qualifying offers. Joe Veleno, Jonathan Berggren. This team's going to be good this season. So I do want to look at defensemen just real quick here. One big loss in Manitoba. We talked about him quite a few times this season. One of the top defensive points getters in the entire league, Kyle Capobianco, leaving Manitoba in free agency, signed a 2-year deal. So it's two-way the first year, one-way the second with the Dallas Stars. So Texas Stars getting a very highly needed skilled defenseman there.
Yeah, that's again big loss for Manitoba, who struggled a lot this year, and from the looks of things, they're going to be losing a handful of their young talent to go up to the Jets. I would expect Brad Lambert to make a push. Heinele on defense, potentially Nikita Chiprikov is going to be playing with the big club, and then to lose a veteran like Kyle Capobianco on top of that is it's going to be tough in Manitoba, I think.
So we're going to stay out west here a little bit. Talk about Brad Hunt, I believe the captain of the Colorado Eagles, currently a unrestricted free agent. No one's picked him up yet. That kind of shocks me, but plenty of suitors. There's a lot of teams with cap space. He might be a late summer signing, but someone's got to pick him up. 49 goals or 49 points as a defenseman. People can use that.
Somebody's going to pick him up as, maybe an AHL signing like later on in the summer. I feel like he's one of a great number of players that are still free agents at the AHL level where, someone's going to say, hey, we want that's, as someone who's professionally pined for, the top point scorers to come over to my team over summers at different points, where some team's going to say, some AHL team, they're kind of, I think, still in the point right now where you're waiting for the dust to settle. Will my NHL team make a signing, or you're kind of figuring out your depth chart at times, but he is going to land somewhere and he's going to make a fan base very, very happy. Even if it's just an AHL level, is, a guy, the benefit to that as an AHL fan is that not only do you get this guy that, he was just one of the leading scorers from the blue line all season, but hey, he's yours. Like, he's not, you don't have to worry about this guy getting recalled or, anything of that nature here too. So kind of a win-win proposition, but I still think there's a lot of action that just hasn't happened yet, just in these early days of free agency, really.
The beauty of doing this live means that we won't post this tomorrow morning and then immediately be out of date as they sign 17 players immediately after hitting stop recording.
Just kind of like how I had a whole segment prepared about Andrew Podorowski, and then he got swiped up by the San Jose Sharks. I'm like, oh, I got to scratch all that. As Jay celebrates.
Love to see it.
So I also want to talk about Lucas Carlson.
I would say, speaking of the Barracuda.
Yeah, that's why I brought him up next. Lucas Carlson, who had 15 goals as a defenseman with the Charlotte Checkers, signed a 2-year deal with San Jose. They are making moves and fast.
So the Barracuda is such a weird team because they can't seem to keep veterans for longer than a year. For whatever reason. But yeah, Lucas Carlson was one of the best players on the Checkers in the playoffs. He was their all-star representative, if I am not mistaken. Excellent signing. Is potentially going to be one of those bubble guys that spends some time with the Sharks and some time with the Barracuda, but with the turnover with the Barracuda, like, he's going to get plenty of ice time down with San Jose. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Lucas Carlson. I think he's a really great player, and I'm excited to be able to watch him full time this year.
So another quick, just going to go to the North Division real quick. The Rochester Americans are losing Jeremy Davies, a 12-goal scorer on the blue line, who we talked about the Belleville Senators earlier on. He signed with Ottawa on the 2nd. So he was day 2 of free agency, a 1-year, 2-way contract. Just another huge piece with the Belleville Senators, which that team drives me nuts because they're so good and they're so feisty, and they're going to be even more so, I think, this season. But I do want to turn sights onto the Atlantic Division here real quick. Nicholas Wow, I knew I was going to mess this name up. Nicholas Brouillard, one of the harder Hartford defensemen this past season, 137 penalty minutes. But they're going to lose the Wolfpack, who had a Cinderella run in the Atlantic Division postseason, off to Seattle, 1-year, 2-way. So that's a bit of a loss in terms of the grit and protection factor.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think Hartford's kind of an interesting.
Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Sorry, I was just going to add that I think Hartford's kind of an interesting team, as we saw them as kind of the, like Deana alluded to, kind of a Cinderella team. Really pushed, I think, hard through those first 2 rounds, but met the same fate as they did a year ago in Atlantic Division final sweep. It's one of those things with Hartford where I kind of say to myself, like, okay, when is this team going to resemble? I mean, they kind of resemble already the New York Rangers, their parent team, that they, make these pretty good playoff runs and, have fallen short a couple years in a row. I believe, again, I'm taking the 1,000-foot view of it. They've added some players in free agency. Maybe look for them to be an improved team in the Atlantic as well.
So any other surprises that are out there? Any teams that maybe sneaky good, maybe unsurprisingly bad, or any players that you're surprised that are still hanging around out there?
If I may, on a wild card here, possibly, I'm kind of curious to see how Lehigh Valley is going to look this season. I'm maybe just have them on the brain after talking about that playoff series a little bit they were involved in last year. But it was very interesting to me. The Flyers were noticeably quiet. Obviously, when your biggest news is signing Matvei Michkov, I mean, you're already doing pretty well, I think, in my opinion there. Obviously, over the moon about that. But, all they really did was they've signed some young, kind of incoming players here to new contracts. Their biggest addition was Anthony Richard, I believe. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yep.
Talented free agent acquisition. But that was kind of it. That was really all that they have. They have a lot of their young talent that they're, kind of meshing there. Massimo Rizzo is going to be a guy I think it's coming into the AHL for the first time here. Just some young pieces. And this is a team that kind of built off of, kind of an unexpected run after, not really a great season. I hate to say they were about a 500 hockey team last year. They lose some of their players there in free agency. They probably still have a little bit more to give in terms of signing a couple more guys. I'm really intrigued to see just how much last season's finish will build upon for them going into this season. They have a lot of unproven talent, but a lot of highly regarded talent in the same breath as speaking with that. I'm curious to see, if Bobby Brink plays for them again or not. I mean, I know the Flyers have, 13 forwards under contract as it stands. So it'd be kind of interesting to see. He'd be a really talented addition for Lehigh Valley to have for the full season. So I'm very intrigued, and this is just the Flyers fan in me that's constantly hoping that they constantly improve here a little bit. To me, it starts at the AHL level. So that's kind of my Cinderella to watch story, hopefully, for next season.
All right. I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the last segment of the show. And I keep trying. My dog Jasmine keeps coming in here, hitting my elbow with her nose. I keep thinking she's going to jump up and say hello, but I don't know if you can hear her. Do you want to come up and say hi?
Jasmine,
no, she just walked away. There is no,
Jasmine says no pictures, please.
Yeah, Jasmine says no pictures.
What the dog
do you want to say hi? And she just wags her tails and looks at me with a stuffed dog in her mouth. Anyway, so I have a game for Corey and Jay. Feel free to play along at home. So this game is inspired by one of my favorite NHL podcasts called Pod Snipe Selly. I always have to say it slow because I get the words all jumbled up. And they have a game where basically what happens is they give a category, and then you know how many spots you have to fill. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 spots. And then we read them one by one, and you have to rank without knowing what's coming next.
So this is like what we did for those jerseys at one time.
Yeah. I forgot that we did that. So basically, I have a list of, as far as my research goes, players that are still without contracts. So I want to know, in your eyes, who would be your highest priority? 1 through 8, who would you call first if you were a general manager in the American Hockey League?
And we're doing the blind ranking as well.
Blind ranking. I have 3 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. And I will keep tabs here on my screen. So any questions, or are you ready to go?
Let's do this.
So that means there's 8 choices. We're ranking them 1 to 8 overall.
Yes. As to whose agent are you going to be calling first, second, third, fourth, all the way down to, if nobody else signs, I'll call this person at number 8. Okay.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to start with Taro Hirose. He's a forward. Played with Grand Rapids this past season.
Let me look up his stats real quick.
I was about to say, I gotta do, like any smart GM, I have to do some research first.
Yeah. Okay, and it's 1 through 8, you said.
1 through 8.
I'm gonna hedge my bets a little bit here, I think. I'm gonna put him at 3rd.
Okay.
This is such a tough one.
This is way harder than the jerseys.
It is going to be much harder. I think I'm going to skew a little lower. I think I'll put him at number 5.
Number 5. Okay.
We're going to have to make a graphic and post these out on social so people can judge us.
Okay. Next, we're going to do a goaltender, A2 Makaniemi.
Oh, that's it. So that's interesting because I like him a lot. He was injured for so much of this season.
Mm-hmm.
And even when he was playing, I don't think he was fully healthy.
Who did he play for last season?
He was with the Barracuda last season.
Ah, okay.
So his stats are not necessarily reflective of him as a goaltender because the defense in San Jose was miserable last season. But Corey, do you want to go first this time and we'll swap, or are you still thinking?
I'm thinking a little bit here so far.
I'm gonna put
gotta
him...
do is dive in the stats a bit.
I'm gonna put him 6th, I think.
6th, okay.
Yeah, just because that injury history worries me a little bit.
Put me on the spot here a little bit. So he was with Chicago in 2022, but did not play in the playoffs, which also is kind of an interesting tidbit. I think I used my 5 spot already, correct?
You did.
I'll say 6 for this one.
6? All right. Corey playing it safe, keeping it in the middle. Okay. Let's go with a defenseman in Sean Day, who was with the Syracuse Crunch.
Oh, I remember liking Sean Day a lot, but I have no...
I like him a lot.
Of that.
It's always fun because you have to try to, balance defensemen. Sometimes they can be in their own, the point, looking at their stats is always not reflective of all of what they are in some ways.
So Corey, you've got 1 through 4, 7 and 8. Jay, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. I like the breaks there. That's very satisfying, actually.
I'm gonna, just because I like him as a player, and again, have no real basis in this, I think I'm gonna put him 4th.
4th, okay. Corey, what's your decision?
I put him at 3. I like what I see a lot from him. He's a large, heavy defenseman who also puts up a lot of points. If I may regret not putting him higher, actually. I like what the Rangers do a lot of times. They have drafted and put together this team of like superhuman guys. Like I still remember seeing. I don't know if he, necessarily was playing in this prospect showcase because he's been around for a while. So I don't think he was. But last season I saw it was a Flyers Rangers prospect showcase, and what I always just remember is how much bigger the Rangers were than the Flyers in that series, and like that just played such a factor in that the games that I've watched. So I may regret not putting him higher, actually.
All right. Let's go with another forward, a veteran in Jerry Mayhew.
Played with the Phantoms this season. Scored his first NHL goal against the Blue Jackets.
I don't believe he was there. He was with Charlotte, I think, last season.
Oh, yep, Charlotte Checkers. I'm sorry. He was with the Flyers, it seemed like, for so long.
It was really only one season.
It seemed like forever, though. Really, it was only the one season. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that feels wild to me.
Because he was with the Iowa Wild for the rest of the time. But probably because I just heard his name so...
I can make a callback.
Yeah, huge callback.
What do I have available still? 1, 2, 5, 7, 8?
1, 2, 5, 7, 8. Yes.
Man, I would really love to put him at 4th, but I can't do that.
Would you like him at 5?
I guess, but I don't think I'm happy about it.
Do you want to go lower?
No. But I also don't want to put him at 2. I feel like I'm painting myself into a corner here, but...
Corey, you have 1, 2, 4, 7, 8.
I think I had to give him number 2. And I think the reasoning for that is you know what you're going to get with Jerry Mayhew. I've never gotten the pleasure of having him on my team, but just from as an AHL team, you're building around a guy like Jerry Mayhew in a lot of ways. You know what you're going to get. And the only knock that I can give against him is that, like, outside of the 2019 playoffs, he hasn't really gotten a chance to flex his muscles in a playoffs really since then. You're talking about 2019, he had 11 points in 11 games. His best season, he had 61 points in 49 games. That was I believe, the ill-fated 1920 season. He's just a guy that, his production has waned slightly in the last couple of years, but when you're talking about a guy that's, pretty consistent hitting the 20 goal mark, I think it's just a massive add to your team, even if he is slowing down, a tick here a little bit recently. So I'm willing to say, if you have the chance to sign Jerry Mayhew, you sign Jerry Mayhew, honestly.
Again, sometimes you just need an adult.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of needing adults, I have our second to last defenseman, the captain of the Manitoba Moose for the past 3 seasons, in Jimmy Oligny. He is currently a free agent. So where would you put him? Only played 8 games this past season, so that might factor into things.
Yeah,
but otherwise,
that's worrying. But is that because he was injured, or is that because he was called up?
I'm looking at elite prospects, and it does not have any other activity for him in the 23-24 season other than that.
He hasn't played a full season since 21-22. Again, worrying.
What are my spots again? I forget. It's
1-4-7-8, J1278.
I'm gonna go ahead and put him 8th, I think.
Okay.
Sorry to Jimmy. It's not personal. That injury history again worries me a little bit. He hasn't played. He played 8 games this season, 17 last season, 67 the season before that, and then I think 15 the season before that, or 21 the season before that. So
I think I had to follow suit and go with 8 for this one. Again, no offense. I'm just not seeing a whole lot numbers-wise that I like. You guys know that I'm one of the few people that puts stock in plus-minus when it comes to defensemen, particularly.
Etc.
And I just see some not bad numbers. I think if you were to put them in the right situation, again, these are teams that I don't think were necessarily stellar around him either. But, you kind of, the one ugly stat that I see is, maybe Milwaukee surely could not have been good back in 2017-18, but minus 20? Oof. Again, that's a long time ago. I know now, like, I'm calling myself an old man by saying that's a long time ago, but I'm just not wowed by anything that I see here.
Okay, now this one is your choice. Do you want the last forward or the last defenseman next? And is there any player you're hoping that is on this list?
I don't know who's all available.
Yeah, like Rocco Grimaldi is someone that I'm hoping shows up. So we've just done 2 defensemen in a row, right? No, we just did Mayhew and then.
Yep.
He was a forward and a defenseman.
Let's go back.
I'd say let's.
I was going to say forward.
You drive the bus here.
Yeah, let's go forward, and we'll go forward defenseman.
Okay, so we'll do forward, defenseman, and then our last goalie. Forward, Jay, you called it, in Rocco Grimaldi.
Number 1. Easy.
Let me take a look, just because I hear about him all the time, and I always confuse him with Andrew Rinaldi at times.
Fair. He's a big Rocco Grimaldi fan.
That Italian-American heritage.
No, I had a tweet earlier on today that I said, if I was a GM in the American Hockey League, because as of this morning, both he and Andrew Podorowski were not signed. I said those would be my first calls.
Was Andrew Podorowski on this list before about 2 p.m. today?
No, he wasn't. But like I said, I had a whole segment ranting about why he was still unsigned. Okay,
So
Corey.
I know there's some leeway to this a bit here. I think I will also go with one just because you can't say anything other than great things about the fact he put up 73 points on 72 games played on a bad team. And I know, like, we just, by we, I mean me, learned about this stat recently that netting a power play goal does not earn you a plus and plus minus. And obviously, this number would be significantly trimmed down if it weren't on a bad Chicago team, but minus 26. Whew. I don't feel like Rocco Grimaldi's had the benefit of playing on a good team almost ever, it seems like. And I feel bad for him. Just, free my mans, put him on a better team.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that he does that on a team that struggles, yeah, put him on my building team, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's had a point per season or better in the last 5 seasons.
That's more than most teams will ever get, honestly.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so we are going to go with the final goaltender. I've come to really like this goaltender in the short time he spent with the Cleveland Monsters. Just seems like a great teammate, a good depth option in Malcolm Subban.
What do I have left?
Corey,
2 and 7?
Corey has 4 and 7, Jay 2 and 7.
Man, I feel bad about this, but I am going to put him in the 7 spot.
Okay. Corey, you have 4 and 7.
Oh, I hate to be a copycat, but I think I'm also going to go with 7. Honestly, I mean, again, it's not a slight against him. I just think there are better options on the list.
All right. So, Jay, do you want to know who you have at 2 and Corey at 4?
Can we try and guess?
Yes. It's a defenseman
who is unsigned. I know Patrick, again, friend of the show, Patrick Williams, has a list of available players. So I'm just going to go and look at that real quick.
Let me know if you want a hint.
Does he have a list? I haven't seen anything.
He does. It's a couple of days old now.
Is it someone that we might be familiar with?
Yes.
Is it someone that I specifically will be familiar with?
I would think so.
Is it Gavin Bayreuther?
Oh, good. Wow. I didn't even think about him. No, it's
okay.
not.
He's not in my thoughts. Well,
I don't think about him at all.
Seattle Kraken legend.
Is it a veteran or a kid?
One moment, please. I need to
make sure that he's not 31 years old and I'm out here calling him the oldest man alive.
I feel it's like, to me, this player will always feel like a kid. I just
is it Chase DeLeo?
No.
Damn it.
Oh my gosh, this player has really 257 games in the American Hockey League, but to me he feels like a kid.
I have no more good guesses. Corey, do you have any guesses?
This list is too long for me to possibly guess.
I can give you a hint in that his older brother plays in the National Hockey League.
Older brother. Is his older brother a forward or a defenseman?
Forward. And Corey should know this player very well.
Oh, is it?
Oh, you're probably. Are you thinking of Lucas Johansson?
Yes.
Saying his brother plays in the NHL is kind of a trick question nowadays.
I know. But okay, so here's the list. And we'll start with Corey and give you like 30 seconds to say how you like this list. Okay, so Corey's 1 to 8 players that he would be calling if he was the GM. First, Rocco Grimaldi, Jerry Mayhew, Sean Day, Lucas Johansson, Taro Hirose, Eetu Makiniemi, Malcolm Subban, the 2 goalies, going 6 and 7, and last Jimmy Oligny. So how do you feel about that list there?
I like it. Obviously, with the benefit of hindsight and knowing the whole list, I would have moved Johansson. I probably would have swapped Johansson and Mayhew, just because I think Lujo is fantastic. He deserves to be in the NHL right now, and I demand that somebody appropriately compensate him with that. To me, he's one of Hershey's most improved players year over year, consistently since the 21-22 season. I think he's been phenomenal. Other than that, I have no regrets or regrets.
No regrets. Okay, so Jay's list: Rocco Grimaldi, Lucas Johansson, Taro Hirose, Sean Day, Jerry Mayhew. Same as Corey, the goalies going 6-7, and Eetu Makiniemi, Malcolm Subban, and also 8, Jimmy Oligny. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good about that, I think. I might swap Hirose and Johansson, but I'm not mad about having Johansson second and Hirose third. I like Lucas Johansson a lot. I would take Lucas Johansson on many of my teams.
Can I pull the Kyle Dubas and have Taro Hirose on this phone and Sean Day on this phone? And I'm just negotiating with 2 at the exact same time. So I know we went a little bit over, but I wanted to get that game done. So it'd be fun to pick your brains. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of Calder's Calling. If you would like to check out our written coverage of the AHL, please check us out online at thecaldertimes.com. Of course, you can follow us on all social media platforms at The Calder Times. And also, if you haven't already, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast catcher. And we also would like to extend a final thank you to our show sponsor, Document Doctors. So we're probably going to be moving into monthly shows now that the season is over. So stick around. Just watch out for our announcements on that. But until next time, that has been Corey. That has been Jay. I've been Deana, and we have been Calder's Calling. Enjoy your summer.